When I was a little kid, I was best friends with this girl named Claire. We did everything together, from sleeping over at each other's houses, to making up games to play together on the playground. Everyone used to joke that we were like twins, separated at birth, and I loved her very much. After the 4th grade, Claire went to the local intermediate school while my parents decided to send me to a private school. We both made new friends and kind of fell out of touch. Of course, I missed her at first, but I was really young at the time and didn't have a phone or any way of communicating with her. Eventually, I made new friends at my new school. Many years went by, and I hadn't thought about Claire for a long time. I was going to a private high school at this time. I was scrolling through Instagram one day when all of a sudden I saw that I had a friend request. I clicked on it and was so happy to see that the username was Claire's name. I looked at her profile picture and saw the same girl I knew all those years ago, just more grown up. She had turned out to be so pretty. She didn't have that many posts or that many followers, although she was following a few people we used to go to school with. I figured she was just new to Instagram, or maybe not the type of person who liked to share very much online. I sent her a quick message saying, "Hey, long time no see, how's life treating you?" along with a smiley emoji. She responded quickly after. She told me that life was going well and she was going to a school about half an hour away from mine. She was hoping to get a scholarship so she could go to college to become a nurse. She asked me about my life and I told her about school and how I played on the tennis team. Even though so much time had passed since we had talked to each other, the conversation was easy. We ended up giving each other our numbers so that we could text. After several days of texting back and forth, I asked Claire if she would want to meet up somewhere close by to get lunch or dinner. She told me that she would love to, but she was pretty swamped with schoolwork since finals were coming up. I totally understood and didn't want to pressure her. I figured whenever she had some free time, we would hang out then. As the weeks passed by, Claire and I texted every single day. I ended up telling her about this popular girl at school named Megan, who had been bullying me about my weight. I wasn't that fat, but I had gained some weight freshman year. No matter what I got for lunch, she would crack a joke about it, even if it was only a salad. Since she was popular, everyone would feel like they had to laugh at her jokes. It had gotten to the point where I stopped eating lunch at all. My self-esteem was terrible, and in my desperate tries to lose weight, I had been starving myself. I felt a little embarrassed telling all of this to Claire, and I was worried about how she would respond, but sure enough, she couldn't have been more supportive. She gave me advice on how to deal with Megan and told me that I was beautiful. It made me feel so much better about myself. I also felt like I could trust Claire with anything. The next day at school, I was getting some things out of my locker at the end of the day when all of a sudden I heard a shriek coming from down the hallway. I turned to look and quickly realized that it was Megan. I eventually found out that someone had spray painted the word bully on her locker and put an actual dead rat inside of her locker. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I was curious about who could have done such a thing. As far as I had noticed, I was the main person Megan bullied. It seemed like a strange coincidence that it happened the day after I opened up to Claire about what Megan had been doing to me. The next day at lunch, I decided to bring up Claire to my friend Mia. Mia had also known Claire as a kid. When I asked Mia if she remembered Claire, she said, "Oh yeah, she and her boyfriend are so cute." Boyfriend? I hadn't seen a boyfriend in any of her pictures, and she hadn't mentioned him to me. I asked Mia to show me what she meant, and she pulled up Instagram. She showed me Claire's profile, but to my shock, it wasn't the one who had friend requested me. This one had way more followers, and it looked active. Her last post was from a couple of days ago, and sure enough, it was of her and her boyfriend. I was so confused and freaked out. Was someone impersonating Claire? Who was I really talking to? That night, I decided to give Claire one more shot to prove it was really her. "How's Teddy doing?" I asked. Teddy is the name of Claire's little brother. He had just been a baby the last time I saw him. "Who's Teddy?" was the text I got back. Well, that's my answer. It wasn't really Claire. I felt a ton of emotions at once. I felt angry, heartbroken, betrayed, and even embarrassed for falling for this catfish. Why would someone do this to me? I didn't know. I quickly came up with a text to send back. "I know you're not Claire, you sick freak. You have exactly 5 minutes to tell me who you are before I block you. I wrote back. I got another message. "I'm sorry, please don't be mad at me. I just wanted to get closer to you," the message read. "Who is this?" I asked again, getting angrier. I tried to FaceTime the number several times and no one picked up. I finally gave up and blocked the number and Instagram account. Only a few minutes passed and I got a text from an unknown number. "Unblock me or you'll be sorry," it read. I just shook my head in disgust and blocked that number too. I put my phone down and crawled into bed, tears streaming down my face. After a while, I eventually drifted off to sleep. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up feeling unusually hot. There was a strange sound that I didn't recognize. It sounded like cackling. I opened my eyes and was terrified to see that part of my ceiling was on fire. I jumped out of bed, screaming for everyone to get out of the house. My little brother heard my screams and ran to my parents' bedroom to wake them up. I grabbed the dog, and we made it out in minutes. The fire department was able to get the fire out quickly, so the house wasn't a total loss. But there were a lot of damages, and we ended up having to stay at my grandparents' house for months. The fire department couldn't find a source of the fire, which led them to believe that the fire had been started on purpose. Our neighbors checked their cameras and saw a strange car pull up to our house at around 3 in the morning. The person threw something at our house and then took off in the car. The cameras were just close enough to the car that they managed to catch the license plate number, which was given to the police. They tracked the plate to its owner in time, and when they told me their name, I was more shocked than I had been in a long time. The car belonged to Eddie Huber, a guy that used to have a crush on me back in elementary school. I hadn't seen him in years. Police searched his phone and quickly found that he was obsessed with me and had been stalking me for years. He even knew my address. He pretended to be Claire so he could get closer to me. When I blocked his number, he went completely crazy and set my house on fire to get revenge. He was sent to prison where he's going to stay for a very long time. This was one of the scariest things that ever happened to me, but I can't help but imagine how much worse it would have been if I hadn't woken up the night of the fire. Growing up, I always knew it was important to be careful about the kinds of things you put on social media. My dad always told me that once you put something on the internet, it never really goes away, not even if you delete it. I tried to be careful about what I posted. By the time I got to college, I became a little riskier. I posted a lot, not just on my Instagram feed, but on my story as well. I had a decent amount of followers, and I enjoyed showing off my life to those who cared to follow me. One evening, I was laying in my dorm room and scrolling through Instagram when I noticed I got a new follower. I had a public page, so anyone could follow me that wanted to. The username was Jim, followed by a lot of random letters and numbers. I clicked on his profile and noticed that he was only following younger girls and had barely any followers. He had only one picture, and it was a selfie. He was balding, looked to be in his 50s or 60s, and had a double chin. He was no one I had ever met in real life. He commented on my most recent picture, writing, "Look at that body," along with a heart eye emoji. Ew, I thought to myself, but I didn't block him. Why throw away a free follow? My roommate Jenny burst into my room. "Why aren't you getting ready? Aren't we going out tonight?" I groaned. I had class in the morning and I didn't really feel like partying. "Come on, it will be fun. Plus, it's Amy's birthday," Jenny said, referencing one of our friends. I sighed and began to slowly get ready. "We're leaving in 10 minutes, Jenny said before leaving my room. I threw on a dress and did my hair before heading out to join my friends. Jenny's boyfriend Adam was going to be the designated driver, so we'd be going in his car. We all packed into the vehicle and headed off to our college town where all the bars were. Throughout the night, I tried my best to have a good time. I had a couple drinks, all the while wishing I was at home in bed. I asked Adam to snap a picture of me, Jenny, and Amy, which he did. I then posted it on my Instagram story, tagging the bar I was at. When midnight came around, it was clear none of my friends were close to be ready to go home. I was sober enough to drive, but given the fact that we had taken Adam's car, my only way of getting home was calling an Uber. After calling one to pick me up right outside the bar, I said goodbye to my friends and left the bar. I stood outside, scanning the road for my Uber. I was exhausted and couldn't wait to get home. Just then, a black Toyota Camry pulled up right next to where I was standing. It fit the description of my Uber. Thank goodness they were right on time. I opened the door and climbed in the back seat. The car took off quickly, and the driver didn't say much, which I was grateful for. All I wanted to do was rest. I was surprised when all of a sudden I got a message on the Uber app, "Hey, it's Anthony, your Uber driver. I just pulled up and I'm waiting outside." I pulled up the My Trips page on the app, and sure enough, my ride hadn't started yet. The Uber I had called was still at the bar. Panic rose in my chest as I realized I had gotten into the wrong car. Maybe this was just a misunderstanding. I cleared my throat nervously and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I think I mistook you for my Uber." For the first time, the driver turned around to face me. "You're right where you're supposed to be, sweetheart," he said. I gasped as I realized I recognized this man. He was the same person who had followed me on Instagram earlier that day. He looked exactly like the guy from the selfie. "Where are you taking me?" I asked, my voice shaking. He didn't answer, but as soon as he took a side road heading towards the woods, I had a feeling that I knew what was going to happen. I knew if he got me out in those woods, there would be no chance for me. No one around to hear me scream. I knew what I had to do. As soon as he slowed down to make a turn, I reached for the door, unlocked it, and swung it open. Before the man could react, I had thrown myself out of the car. Because the car was still partially moving, I hit the ground harder than I had anticipated and heard a crunch in my shoulder that I was pretty sure was a broken bone. I couldn't pay attention to it. I just ran back towards the direction of campus. I was screaming, and I guess the man knew better than to draw more attention to himself because he took off in the opposite direction. When I made it back to campus, I called 911 immediately. Multiple officers went out looking for the man, but it was no use. He was gone. I told them about the Instagram account he had reached out to me from, but it was already deleted. There was absolutely nothing for the police to go on. Even though it is still an active investigation, I don't believe they'll ever find him. My greatest fear is that he is still out there trying to kidnap other innocent girls. I've never been one to post too frequently on social media. Maybe I'd do an Instagram post once every few months or so. I mostly just use the app to look at other people's posts. I was surprised one day when I was lying in bed scrolling through the app and noticed I had a new follower. I clicked on the profile and saw that there were no posts and the person had no followers. They didn't even have a profile picture, and the only one they were following was me. Their username was "Where Justice Is Due," along with a long series of numbers. I was just about to block the person when I realized they had posted a new photo. I refreshed the feed and was shocked to see that it was a picture of my dad. He was sitting behind his desk at work and was on a phone call. He didn't seem to know that anyone was taking his picture. I was super creeped out and was about to block the account when all of a sudden, I realized they had posted another picture. I gasped when I realized it was a picture of my family. It was my parents, my younger brother, and I seated around the kitchen table. The picture had been taken from outside of our house, and it was clearly very dark outside. Someone had been stalking us. This I knew for sure, but why? I was about to message the person and ask what they wanted from us when I realized they had already posted another picture to their account. For some reason, this one scared me more than the rest altogether. It was a picture of my little brother Alex, only 8 years old. He was riding home from school on the school bus, his best friend Caleb seated next to him. He had a great big smile on his face and was clearly unaware that anyone had been taking his picture. I jumped out of bed and ran to my mom's room to show her the account. I had expected my dad to be in bed next to her, but she told me that he had been held late at work. I asked her what had happened, and she explained that someone had punctured all 4 of my dad's tires. He was still waiting for a tow truck to arrive. I knew it was a setup, and something wasn't right. I ran out of the room and called my dad. He picked up on the first ring. I explained the strange pictures I'd been receiving, and to my surprise, he didn't seem nearly as shocked as I was expecting. He explained to me that 1 week ago he had to fire one of his employees for drug use at the workplace. The name of the guy was Marcus. Marcus didn't take his firing too well and promised my dad that he would regret his decision to ever get rid of him. Marcus assured him he knew where we lived and would get his revenge. My dad always assumed Marcus was bluffing. He didn't think he would actually go through all this effort to hurt us. We ended up sharing this creepy account with the police, and they confirmed that it had come from Marcus. Marcus had been stalking us for weeks, even before he had been fired. His phone was full of pictures taken of our family without our knowing. It was clear we had become an obsession of his. The scariest part of all is the AR-15 gun that the police found in the trunk of his vehicle the day after we turned him in. I'm sure that Marcus had intended to kill us, and if we hadn't turned him in on time, I have no doubt that is what would have happened. If you loved this story, be sure to check out the other news story, 3 horrifying true internet predator stories. It's sure to send a shiver down your spine. Sleep tight.